Hello and welcome to the Minds on the Frontline Podcast, a podcast dedicated to meaningful conversations that inform, educate, and inspire frontline workers, their families, and the public. Our goal is to shed light on the mental and behavioral health challenges faced by those on the front lines while providing valuable insights and real-world solutions. Minds on the Frontline is brought to you by the Frontline Strong Together 5 Program. FST5 provides streamlined access to behavioral and mental health services and crisis resources for Michigan's Frontline 5 workers and their families. This includes all professional, part-time, and volunteer firefighters, EMS, law enforcement, corrections officers, and 911 dispatchers in Michigan and their immediate family members. First responders and mental health experts collaboratively created FST5 to provide 24/7 live support, effective resources, and cutting-edge services to prevent and alleviate PTSD, anxiety, depression, and other frontline work-related mental and behavioral health challenges. Need help now? If you are a frontline worker in Michigan or an immediate family member experiencing any crisis, work-related, substance abuse, depression, relationships, finances, or any other, reach out by calling 1-833-34-STRONG or go to fst5.org for more information. I'm Jeff Lassers, one of your hosts, and I am a professional firefighter, paramedic, educator, and content creator. Minds on the Frontline is co-hosted by Mike Mattern, also a professional firefighter and paramedic. In addition, Mike is a peer support team member for his fire department and the FST5 program. Sitting in for Mike as co-host today is Scott Taylor, a recently retired police officer and currently a peer with the FST5 program. Scott serves as the president of the Fraternal Order of Police, or FOP, Lodge number 124, and as the Michigan Officer Wellness Liaison for the National FOP, where he works to improve mental health support and wellness resources for law enforcement officers across the state. In this episode, we welcome back Dr. Ali Amirsadri, director of the FST5 program, as well as a well-respected psychiatrist and mental health advocate who has dedicated over 20 years of his career to emergency psychiatry in the ER. Known affectionately as Dr. A, he currently is a professor and associate chair for clinical services for the Department of Psychiatry at Wayne State University and serves as the chief medical officer for Wayne Health Department of Psychiatry. During this episode, we discuss the powerful connection between crying and laughter, two emotional responses that shape how we process experiences, connect with others, and cope with stress. We explore why these reactions are more than just expressions of joy or sadness. They are essential tools for resilience, especially for frontline workers dealing with intense situations. We start the conversation by breaking down the science and evolution of crying and laughter, exploring how these responses developed to communicate before language even existed. We dive into their physiological and neurological impact, looking at how they regulate emotions, relieve stress, and strengthen social bonds. We also examine how first responders use humor as a coping mechanism, the risks of suppressing emotions, and why vulnerability isn't a weakness, but a key to building trust and resilience. This conversation is a reminder that both laughter and tears serve a real purpose. By understanding and embracing these natural responses, we can build stronger connections, navigate challenges more effectively, and ultimately take better care of our mental well-being. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And make sure to like, subscribe, and follow all Minds on the Frontline Podcast social media channels. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Hi, guys.
Hi. Morning.
So, Dr. A, welcome back. We've had you in here a lot by design. We like having you in here. So, today we're going to talk about two things that are pretty happy and pretty sad all at the same time. Crying and laughter. All right? So, let's start off with the big picture of really why you want to talk about these two sides of the spectrum. Basically, crying and laughter, as we talked about before, are two sides of the same coin. But give everybody a little bit more about that.
We need to start from the evolution of human beings, because before we came to language and we didn't have words, we had to communicate. And one of the best ways that you could communicate was through emotional release or display. Both of these are emotional releases. When we are born, for example, the child is born. How do they communicate their discomfort? How do they say, I'm hungry, I have pain, I need water, I need some attention? Is by crying. So crying, as you can see, is so deep inside us. And the nature has created this for us to be able to express discomfort. As we grow up, of course, other things come to play, which we'll discuss. But going to evolution, both of them, in fact, had a major role in our group cohesion. In other words, as we know, both of them are contagious. So you start laughing, other people around you laugh.
Oh, yeah.
You
And
start
it's usually
crying.
inappropriately, right?
The
The more inappropriate, the more contagious it is to me.
That
I don't
can
know
be.
if that's just my own personal brand.
That can be. I mean, particularly for you guys.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
I'm doing it now.
I know.
I'm doing it
And
right
like,
now.
oh, it's just so many things. It's like I'm not supposed to think about it, so it's rolling through my head right
Yeah.
now. But please continue.
And we displayed that contingency effect, right now. So when people cry, it's the same. Some people start crying, and many others will get really sad. So this is the way that we communicated to say that I am sad, and others understood you that you are sad. Laughter the same. As we advanced and had verbal communication involved, these did not disappear. And for that reason, again, and for expression of emotions, we are the only mammal, for example, or maybe animal, if we may call it, that we have so many small muscles in our face. There are about 16 or 18 pairs of muscles. I think it is 18 pairs of 36 muscles, small muscles, which will deliver messages of emotion. It is discomfort, or maybe it is comfort and possibly excitement or happiness. When we cry, many of these muscles again get used. When we laugh, many of these muscles get used. All these muscles deliver a message to our brain. Of course, the message of happiness, for example, or the message of sadness. And this is the way that we release and control our emotions. In other words, we say, okay, I'm done with this intensity of the negative or positive emotion. Now I have to display it. And without realizing, we do display it. So it's like a relief valve. And both of them, after this is done, you feel rested. You feel refreshed. You have seen, for example, again, kids, they cry, and after that, they go to sleep. You have seen adults the same way. They cry, and then they go to sleep. That's the physiological function, because after these displays, you're relaxed. This is, in brief, how I can explain it. And as we discuss, I guess we can dissect it more.
It makes total sense that they are, like you said, those relief valves for either positive or negative emotions. And we can obviously, everybody listening to this can think of a time where laughter wasn't just happy laughter and crying wasn't just sad crying. And it also depends on I'm guessing, on how you were raised, your culture, all of these things that all come together of the intensity of crying, when you'll be doing it, and when it may even be expected even.
Yeah. I mean, think about the 8-year-old that gets the Xbox for Christmas and the tears of joy, crying uncontrollably because they're happy.
Right.
Or the awkward laughter.
Right.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, Scott, crying doesn't only happen during sadness.
Right.
It happens during happiness. It happens during anger, especially for females. That's how they express their anger sometimes.
I've witnessed that, unfortunately, many times.
And the other one is at the times of, as you mentioned, gratitude. So the kid is so happy and thankful, and you don't have words to express it or explain it, and tears come to your eyes.
Yeah.
The other part, which is quite interesting, is that the tear which comes with sadness has some structures to chemicals that the tears of joy doesn't.
Really?
So they can find out, if you cry, by examining it, that this is a tear of joy or is this a tear of discomfort and sadness.
It's a polygraph for tears.
Yeah.
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 Good
So
to know.
that's
Good to know.
Okay.
Good to know.
All right, so the crying and laughter are those universal, healthy, and essential responses of our body. Okay, let's give a little bit deeper dive into crying. What is it? Why are we doing it? The emotional versus that reflex crying. Give us a little bit more there.
First of all, as we discussed, is a communication. So you tell others, this is what's happening inside me. And you tell yourself, or you remind yourself that this is the time that I need to stop it because it's overwhelming me. Because with sadness or other emotions, some activity is needed. Because if you don't act and use muscles for release of tension, it's not going to work out. Either you need to release the emotion through action or through words. When you're crying, you don't have any words until you start crying, and then the words will come to you. So this is a facilitator between you and I and others in the group to understand each other. And that is the group cohesion function of crying. People get closer to each other, in fact. It also shows the vulnerabilities that we usually may have and try to hide it. In fact, vulnerability is something which is very positive and will relax you, because why do you need control at all times? And it will grow you. It will bring more resilience to you because it is vulnerability which grows you.
And I'm guessing that vulnerability, recognizing it and knowing you could be vulnerable to that person, means that they can kind of protect you and got your six while you're in that situation.
Well, absolutely.
Like a dog would show their belly to the owner almost,
no,
like, I trust you that you're not going to eat me.
The issue of trust is one of those areas which is very important for both of these, in fact, but more for crying. It will increase oxytocin in both individuals in there and brings senses of empathy in others, so they can pay more attention to you, and you get much closer to each other because you have shown the vulnerability. Both of you do, in fact, because one person gave permission to himself or herself to be closer to you, and you gave permission to the other person get closer to you. So you received it positively, and that creates the bond that we need in meaningful relationships. That's how it works.
That's pretty heavy. I think about it. But it's also like,
I wonder why you guys so quiet over there. I'm like,
super common sense. I mean, if you think about it, and if you're with somebody who's sad and they start crying, what your first emotion is to give them a hug, right? To bring it in, to comfort them.
Well, I'm sure you guys in your line of work have seen things which brings tear to eyes.
oh yeah, a lot of things.
And also laughter.
Well, yeah, a lot of times I think, and then we'll get into this, but the use of laughter to avoid crying as a tool.
Yes.
To allow the relief valve to pop in a more comfortable and immediate acute way.
Yeah, it's a coping mechanism used by first responders like every day.
Yeah, and because we verbally spar for fun all day, it's an easy go-to.
Absolutely.
It's easy to get it on there. And you know when a certain person walks into the room and figure it out, whether it's a dispatch center or a corrections facility or a firehouse or a cop car, you know when the right person walks in, like, this guy's got to say something good.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
you know.
Yep. Show's about to start.
Right. And, you know, I've been on a lot of CPRs where and please understand that we would never do anything to disrespect anybody, but the way we communicate with each other is a way to make the feeling of the situation going on right now with the person we're caring for a little less heavy so we can move through it.
Absolutely.
You know, we're not focusing on them. I'm focusing on, hey, Steve, how are you? You know what I mean? And trying to, like, release that tension a little bit, get a little smile out of people.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, this is healthy. Laughter and smiling and all those are very healthy. Crying is healthy, of course. So these are our positive things that are meant to be, not meant to resist.
On a note on that, so how many horrific crime scenes or accident scenes have you been to? And you'll make a comment to your fellow to help alleviate it. What we have to be conscious of as first responders is make sure that nobody else is within earshot of that, so that the civilian doesn't hear you, because all that's going to say is, "Oh, those guys were laughing at there was a bloodbath and they were making jokes about it."
Right.
When the natures tell you that you need to release this stress that you have inside you, remember, these are stresses, so they have stress hormones, they have stress neurotransmitters, they have physiological effects.
Yeah.
And both of them of interest is that they go through the same mechanism. Crying and laughter go through almost the same mechanism.
Yeah.
The issue is that based on the event outside or context outside, and based on my perception or my context inside, I may laugh or I may cry. But you're right. When someone doesn't know the situation, will be unhappy because you saw something real bad and your body says. The other example I can give you is that when people don't know what to do and they are real nervous, what do? They will start scratching their head and they don't know if they have to cry or if they have to smile.
Right.
And many people will have a quote-unquote nervous smile or nervous laughter, and some people will start crying.
I mean, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. I mean, you've heard that a million times. I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
I'll run away from the cry. If I'm at work and I'm at my uniform on and I have my super can't cry uniform, I will run to the most ridiculous joke at the most opportune time to off-gas that.
Yep.
I'd be lying if I said you can't get through that sometimes. There's literally been situations. Fortunately, I've not responded to one where I felt quite this way, but I remember a friend of me being dispatched to a call on a lake that involved a number of children. And he said to his partner, this has the potential of being the worst thing we've ever seen. And when we got there, it was. So there was no joke to be made on the way there that could off-gas that feeling.
Right.
They're already, as fathers on the way to that scene, already in an emotionally lit up space that's probably already tickling that cry button already. So although I like to pretend I can run away from all of these feelings with laughter, there's some that you can't.
Absolutely. Sometimes you really can't. The good news is that both of them release the emotions and reduce cortisol in your body, right? Mm-hmm. And that will release the tension that you have inside. And you are talking or communicating with a partner. That is good because, again, as I said, you need to function or take action or talk. And that's what you are doing through this communication as well.
Like you said, you can run away from the crying as much as you want, but eventually it's going to catch up, and it's going to catch up at an inopportune time. And it's going to hit you.
Or you're going to hit the bottle. Or
whatever. Both. Or both.
Yeah.
Right?
Or some people that hit the bottle and then they can't stop crying.
Right.
And that tends to. Why is that? Walk me into the emotional crier that when they drink, they kind of let it all out.
Well, unfortunately, alcohol is a solvent.
So it is a solution to your problems.
I think we need to look that up. We need to look that one up again.
Just for a moment.
Okay.
It gets solved in water, and also it gets solved in fat, lipids. And our brain mostly are made of these two.
Yeah.
So it gets to every segment of your brain. And it is a depressant. So it inhibits the function of the control system of your brain, which is usually prefrontal cortex. So this will start kind of letting your other emotional parts, which is the limbic system, including amygdala, to function the way that they function. So when you don't have any inhibition or you have very little inhibition, whatever you're suppressing is just going to come out and ooze out.
So whatever you have built up, that's coming out.
It will come out.
Whether it's a good time or a bad time.
Or bad time, absolutely. Yeah. So both of them will come out.
Because some people are fun drunks. I hate using that word, but you take them out, you party with them, like, that guy's so fun. He's, he gets a little messy, and then the other guy's like, oh.
There's the mean drunk, the sad drunk, the fun drunk, and sometimes all the same person, depending on the phases.
Okay.
But
that makes more sense. So you're just removing the inhibition from holding back on whatever is in there and just kind of going after it.
Yeah. And there is a lot of sadness inside people.
Yeah, for sure.
It will come out.
And it might have been the reason they picked up that bottle in the first place.
Absolutely.
And then they get a couple deep. Next thing you know, they're picking up their phone. They start all the texting to the group of the people. You've gotten the text from the friends, and we've all gotten that friend. You just hope they can get some help.
Yeah.
So crying activates our parasympathetic nervous system, allowing us to calm down. It's that regulatory. Let's get into some more laughter. You really already discussed it, but why do we laugh?
Again, it's a communication mechanism and bonding purposes that it has. With laughter, we communicate happiness to others, as we discussed, and at the same time, we are forming cohesion in there. We are forming friendship. We are, in fact, showing some vulnerability in there. And there is different neurotransmitters and hormones that they get released. So it has multiple functions to reduce or release stress inside you. When you laugh, the same thing happens. First, you are going to have release of stress hormone or a lot of stress hormone coming up. And as the laughter starts going on, it will reduce your stress and you feel calmer and better because of what you said. Parasympathetic system will take on. But
yeah,
in the
you
beginning,
feel the at the end of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And the good news about both, about laughter and crying, is that when the parasympathetic system comes out, it gives you a healthier cardiovascular system. In fact, it will give you an exercise on something which is called heart rate variability, or HRV, is one of the best indicators of your health.
And that's the space between the beats.
Yeah, that's the healthy space between the beats, which they need to change with breathing.
Yeah, you start to talk to some people about parasympathetic breathing techniques, and that's what they're doing there.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is I don't have to sit there and meditate so much. I can just laugh really hard and get a similar effect.
Laughter is a kind of meditation because you're not thinking about anything else.
Oh,
And
perfect.
mindfulness is not thinking about anything, right?
Right. I'm going to write all my
So-
if we can sit around long enough and
Yeah.
laugh, we're going to write it up for mindfulness training
It
at
is
work.
part of mindfulness. You can be laughing and you can be crying, both.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let me ask you this. Can you fake it to make it? And that's what I mean by that is we all know when a real laugh, you feel it. It's in your guts and you're like, you can't hold it back.
Right.
And then there's sometimes like, yeah, you're like, yeah, like, are you getting any additional, but can I make myself, can I put myself in that state without the proper stimulus to actually make me actually laugh?
Yeah, one of the prescriptions that I write for my patients, in fact, first responders particularly, is fake smile.
Okay, so you can fake it to make it.
You have to fake it to make it. It's not the can. You have to.
Okay.
Interesting.
I ask them to, for example, draw some pictures, different places, reminders, different places. Start laughing. You wake up in the morning, have a smile on your face. That will change the physiology that you have, and all the other neurotransmitters and hormones will start working. That will be a setup for your day, that you can have a better day because it changed the mindset that you have. It will be a positive mindset.
And does that positive mindset set off a cascade of positively good neurotransmitters
Absolutely.
and hormones
All of those.
to keep me in that direction? I'm not going to see a huge spike like I just saw the funniest movie or thing I ever saw, but at least you're headed in that direction. You're tipping the scales in your favor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually fake smile or even fake crying, because some people
a little harder, but yeah.
can do it well. I mean, great actors,
So if I can cry on command, I'm still doing the same release?
we are doing the same release,
Oh,
not
okay.
to the extent or intensity of natural release that we have from crying or laughter, but it will give some release. Yeah.
Kind of like the fake smile or the...
Yeah. But
Yeah.
you are right. Fake it to make it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought that was a bunch of baloney, but
That's
Dr.
crazy.
A says, here
I
we
believe
go.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so real versus fake. What else do we need to know about laughter? When is it not appropriate? Let's get into that. I think that's what most first responders want to know is like...
Is it ever not appropriate? I don't.
And before we hit record, I told a couple jokes to give Dr. A little bit of a piece of what's on our mind, just to kind of
Yeah.
see what he thought was a off-color joke or not. But, when is it appropriate or not for our first responders?
Be aware of your social circumstances. And these days, cell phones are there, and everybody can get a video of you or whatever it is, or the conversations that you have. Probably you have lots of codes between you and your partner in there, and you can talk about, joke about, laugh about, cry about, all that.
Yeah.
But when it is taken out of context, then it's a different story.
Yeah.
And many times things are out of context. The other part which I need to add to this is that we rely so much on our vision. And as we say, if someone says, have you done this, or can you give me an idea about this guy or the other guy? And you say, I haven't seen, I haven't heard, all that, right? Having said all this, our vision is not the most accurate, in fact. And that's something that if the small piece of a video is shown that Jeff is talking about something and smiling at the same time, will be taken out of context very, very easily. But that will have a lasting impact on people because, quote unquote, they have seen it.
They've resolved it in their mind
Right.
of what the situation was.
That's the conclusion. Immediately comes.
So it's not that anything is off limits as long as you know who you're talking to and your surroundings and it stays in that room. Like anything else in life, you can have a private conversation, but you got to make sure it's a private conversation.
A private conversation that you have. And as we discussed, something which shouldn't happen is that making fun of individuals you deal with on the street, those are off limits. But you want to crack joke with your partner about different things. Yes, I was doing ABC and it failed, and then you make a joke out of it. That's great.
Laughter heals all wounds. That's always been my role.
Yeah.
And prevent wounds too.
Yeah, right. It's always been my go-to because it's fun. And one of the biggest reasons I love being a firefighter is the firehouse because the antics.
Yes.
Shenanigans.
The
shenanigans.
And sometimes it's just something said over coffee to somebody walking by and you didn't see it coming. It's like, that's beautiful.
I was seeing a firefighter several years ago, and he came with intense suicidal ideations to emergency room. And we talked, and he put himself together, etc. I said, okay, so you want to go home? And he said, no. I said, so why are you fighting so much not to be hospitalized and you're not going home? And he said, because I want to go to the firehouse. I want to be around my buddies in there. They are there for me.
Yeah.
And I said, well, go ahead.
Yeah. A cup of coffee at the firehouse, and I'm sure it's the same. Yeah, it wasn't like we were just laughing. You're going on calls, you're not sleeping, you're doing this stuff, but between calls,
that's what held it all together. That's what held up all the bad stuff, all the shift work was the laughter. That's the common bond that kept us coming back and loving being part of what we love about this job.
That's great, but also now I think we can feel more comfortable to cry when we need to cry as well.
Yeah, and I think it's becoming more and more acceptable. I never thought that when the time was appropriate, let's say, quote unquote, some things are so bad that I've seen people break down. There's not a human being on the planet that's going to hold them against them on that situation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's certainly other situations where they didn't seem as big to somebody else.
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't say anything to the person, but you certainly could feel a little bit of judgment. Mm-hmm. But the older I get, and the younger everybody else I work with gets, it seems to be more appropriate to have whatever emotion that comes to you.
Life's
fine.
100%. This young generation is more open to sharing, which is great, which it should be. Even let's go back to like when I grew up. If I had $1 for every time as a 5-year-old kid, my dad would say, "I'll give you something to cry about." Stop crying. Right. I can't stop. What do you mean? That doesn't make any sense.
Your buddies are watching.
Yes,
and
I'm 5, but that doesn't make sense to me.
See what happens. Cry.
Right. Right. And, it goes back to there's no crying in baseball. But I think even, like you said, the older we get, I think the guys, and even my generation, they'll do it, but they'll do it when they're alone. That's when they'll let the release come.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Rather than they're not going to do it to a buddy because I'm not crying in front of you.
And less of them are going to think anything of seeing somebody let loose. Like funerals, everything. It's hard.
Right. And I love these tough guys who don't. And you notice they also will never watch Old Yeller. Although they don't ever watch a movie that'll trigger that. Where
what's wrong with? Okay, so let me ask you this on the crying. Random movies that aren't even sad will get me. I'm watching Maverick. That's Top Gun 2, and me and my wife at the theater. I look at her, we're both tearing up. Like, what happened? What? So give me some insight on that.
Well, as we discussed in other conversations we had, is that we are the collector of all events of what has happened in the past in us and our previous generations. So it just needs one similarity, which is closer to what I have suppressed or repressed or do not want to think about at this point in time. And just that click will turn on the floodgate, which I was not even aware that I had.
You hit the right code, the sequence of events, you get the right hormones popping, and this is the exhaust fumes.
Like you said, it's out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I've same way. And then that's I've got allergies. I got to get up. Yeah, right. I'm not crying. I got allergies. Leave me alone.
And this is through, it's called associations that the brain makes, and that's what happens.
Wow, I don't know. Maybe it's in past life I was a fighter jet pilot or something, because that one got me.
Well, I think a lot of it, enough for me, is like when the good guys coming to save the day, or when something where they're just the guys, the sheepdog is coming into effect, and you're like, that's pretty cool. I like that. I did that before.
Because everybody wants, at least unconsciously, wants to save and do something very important.
Absolutely.
And someone else that you, at some level, have identified with is doing it for you in there.
Every first responder, sometime, somewhere, responds about saving the day. Everyone.
Sure.
That's all part. That's part of the reason we do it.
Right.
We want to save the day. We
in
want
some capacity to be involved, to be.
Yes.
You see a big event happen, and you're one of 20, 30, 40 people a part of it. Like, I was there. I got to help. Whether it was a small piece or a big piece, you got to be a part of it.
But just saying that like the hair on the back of my neck, because we went and we had a mission, we did it, we solved it, we either we did something right.
Right, it all went well.
It all went well.
It felt natural.
Yes,
that means you trained right, you did it right, and then you get that sense of pride out of it. And I think back, and I see this even in my father-in-law and previous generations from the fire service, where you see them look back on it fondly and have a somber, they miss it so much.
Oh, yeah.
And all the things they could have just maybe soaked in a little bit more, right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
and so I think it's that same emotions.
It's the same reason that every time retired firefighters, retired cops, any first they get together, they have a couple of pops, they start telling war stories. It all goes back. Hey, remember the time? The time that you miss it. Absolutely, you miss it. You don't ever talk about the crappy ones. You talk about the fun ones.
Yeah. So you're looking at similarities, and you're creating or building relationships.
Absolutely.
And you're sharing your emotions together.
Yeah.
And nothing can really replace it. It is part of the human condition that we need to cherish. And I have heard you guys, and I have heard many of my colleagues and nurses, something happens, and then they take care of it and say, thank God. And that is something that, in a way, the body, of course, is gratified, but at the same time, it is a way that they express their gratitude towards whatever we can call higher power or whatever it is. But this is something that evolution has created for us to be able to do such a thing. It also releases dopamine and endorphins in us.
Yeah.
So it's quite amazingly simple and very complicated at the same time.
Oh, we appreciate that very much, sir. And I do want to ask one more question to kind of tie it all together to all humans. You know me, we always talk about first responders, but we're all humans here. And you worked in the ER for a lot of time. You're still in the ER. You've spent many, many shifts in the ER with nurses, physicians, PAs, all the people. Mm-hmm. How do they respond to this? Is it the same thing that we go through? Do you see the same jokes and the same sick
I can't say same jokes, but similar jokes
the
because of circumstances.
Place of your brain and all. Yeah.
Right, and that's how they keep themselves going as well.
Yeah.
All of them at some point they are irritated and irritable and angry and all that, and then they crack jokes and they take a break, get a cup of coffee, come back, and get irritated again. They start laughing, smiling, the whole thing. It is a part of our nature as human beings to want to cope with the stress and release it. And that's how you improve your resilience and you become more powerful in a way. By that, I don't mean muscle. I mean flexibility.
Right. Your mind is able to absorb more shots, not physical.
You develop better coping strategies and coping styles.
Those coping styles could be letting yourself experience those emotions, whatever they are.
Don't take yourself very seriously, to be honest.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, that's a great philosophy in life. Don't
And
take
that's
yourself
for both,
too serious.
not just it. Don't be so serious you're not going to laugh, but also don't take yourself serious that you can't let yourself cry and let go sometimes.
And that goes for everybody. Regardless, I don't care if you're...
especially if you're the boss. If you're the boss, you got to show that you think things are funny and you also think things are sad.
Yep.
I can't talk how bosses need to act or react. It's up to them. But as a human being, I think we should learn not to take ourselves very seriously.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to continue to not take myself very seriously. I'm not taking him very seriously.
No, yeah, say that nobody takes me serious. That's not just me. Nobody takes me serious. I can't figure it out. Exactly.
You know what? If we don't learn not to take ourselves seriously, other people will feel more comfortable around us.
Right.
That includes those we want to interact with or help. If I go to a patient, for example, and discuss I'm so and so and so and so, the guy will turn his back to me and they don't want to talk to me.
Yeah.
Right.
They get it. Everybody gets it.
Yeah.
So just be flexible, be human.
Yeah, being human. I've noticed that the most since I became an officer at work, and now I have a crew that I'm in charge of, and I make sure don't get in trouble, don't get hurt, and have a good time.
Yeah.
That's it. Just do your job and have fun. And I make sure they know you get bonus points with me if you're funny. If you can make the crew laugh, because you're bringing the vibe up, man.
Yep, exactly.
But don't make fun of others.
No. Well, unless it's funny and they can laugh too.
Yeah. Don't crack jokes at the expense of someone else's.
We're not going to be able to talk at work.
So,
we don't do that. But it's fair game on everybody. You got to be able to take it too.
For all you young first responders listening to this, because I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to get made fun of. It's going to happen. The best advice I can give you is don't show any emotion to it, because once there's blood in the water, they're going to come around you like sharks.
Unless it's funny, you better laugh. If it's
you
funny,
you laugh. Don't do the pouty lip.
No,
don't go that. Don't just let it roll off. Because the minute that you show that you didn't like that, oh, guess what? That's your new nickname.
Yeah,
forever.
And I'll one up you. Not only that, but if they're not making fun of you, they probably don't like you.
They probably don't like it. Exactly.
Because that's how we're like, we tease each other. And my crew knows, bring it. If it's funny, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's just funny.
It may be funny between you guys,
right?
But not
but
with
we have that relationship.
No,
We've established trust.
Right.
We've established all the
right.
things.
Know your environment. Know your environment. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so know your environment. This is probably the best advice ever for first responders before they open their mouths.
I know when to joke with who at the same time as well.
Yeah. That's a big problem. Like as we talked earlier about the first responders, when you're going to other social settings, when you're the only first responder, or if it's you and I are there and we're a room full of teachers who don't understand us, and I tell a joke that I think is hilarious, and the only one that laughs is you.
Yeah.
Everybody else thinks that we're idiots.
Yeah.
So know your environment.
They're not
no,
wrong.
no win. No, they're not. No win and win not to.
Essential word that you use is a different environment that you are in. So when their mindset is somewhere else, don't force people or don't expect people to know where your mindset is.
Right.
And that's important. One thing came to my mind, Jeff, as you were talking. When people build relationships in general, and I'm sure you guys have seen or used the word, you say, for instance, you see someone in some party or some social setting and you say, oh, he has a good smile or she has a good smile. And that will bond you with that individual, just witnessing it. And then you will gravitate towards that individual as well. You can see the power that it can have and relay. So when you are with people, if you can, fake a smile.
That's probably in the first impression, too, when you're meeting
100%.
Big smile. Hello, how are you?
And you're more drawn towards friendly people, and they got that you're going to feel comfortable with that person.
You feel safer that they're not apprehensive for discussion.
You are saying that I feel safe with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Fake the smile. Remember that. Fake the smile.
That's good for probationaries. Walk up, shake hands, smile. Hi, I work here now.
Right. And don't sit down to roll call starts. Don't take anybody's seat. That's the other thing.
Is that
don't
the
ever
big
take
one?
anyone's seat.
Don't be the first one to sit down at the
Nope.
food
Stand in the
table
corner
for
until you know all the chairs are empty.
Yeah, and bring donuts.
Bring donuts.
All right, sir. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for listening to the Minds on the Frontline podcast. We have more great content coming out soon. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And make sure to like, subscribe, and follow all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media channels. Thank you. and have a great day.